Ladies and gentlemen, we do have the first official college football AP Top 25 poll. This is the week one update. There's some new teams in. We have the massive Clemson drop, but they're still ranked. We'll get to that. But I'm just going to go through the entire top 25 like I did last year after every week and after every update and kind of react to it, starting with the top four. So you've got Georgia still sitting at number one. They've got 58 first place votes. Michigan at number two. Both of those teams, very workmanlike efforts. I think both of them failed to cover. Not that it matters too much. Alabama up one spot to number three. They looked good. It was against Middle Tennessee, but Jalen Milroe, the dual threat ability, I think they're going to perform very well against Texas, but it really doesn't matter much because that Alabama-Texas game will tell us everything. Nonetheless, they are up to number three. Florida State's up four spots to number four. There have been people that are really aggressive with Florida State, moving them possibly to one or two. Honestly, I don't hate that. When you look at Florida State right now, they have everything you would want when it comes to the veteran leadership with the talent, the transfer portal. They utilized it amazingly. They got four legitimate elite players through it. And these are all transfer portal guys who have the veteran leadership. When you compare that to Alabama breaking in a new QB, there's question marks. Michigan is limited in terms of overall talent because of recruiting. You could make the argument Florida State should be number two. I don't think right now, people are going to put them above Georgia because Georgia, they've won the last two national titles. I get it, but Florida State's up to number four. Ohio State does drop two spots down to number five. It was a lackluster performance for the Buckeyes. Their defense did look good, but remember, this Ohio State defense did the exact same thing last year. When they face bad teams, they completely shut them down, and then when they face good offenses, it's really bad. They allow back-to-back 40-point games against Michigan and Georgia to end the season. And this Ohio State team, it hinges on the quarterback and offensive line situation right now for the Buckeyes. They're starting Kyle McCord right now. He'll be starting against Youngstown State, and I'm guessing you're just going to have to roll with him at this point because you do have a very tough game in a few weeks against Notre Dame. We will see. USC stays at number six. They crushed Nevada. Penn State stays at number seven. I would probably have Penn State above USC. I think Penn State's more complete, but that's nitpicking. They stay there. They beat West Virginia and barely covered that spread. You've got Washington only up two spots. Certainly, you can make the argument Washington should be up more. It just depends. You're factoring in preseason hype. You're factoring in overall roster talent. And that's why you would keep a team like Ohio State above Washington, even though Washington performed amazingly against a decent Boise State team at home, dropping a 50-burger. You can see Tennessee up three spots at number nine. I guess. I think Tennessee, based off of what they did last year, probably started a little bit too low. They were ranked number 12. Was their performance against Virginia worthy of then moving up three spots? I don't think so. I think Virginia's horrible. And also they ran up the score late in that game. But they're at number 9. At number 10, you can see Notre Dame also up three spots, certainly deserved. Although Notre Dame really hasn't played anyone, they have covered both of their spreads easily. They look dominant. They're going to have a tough test on the road at NC State. But right now, Notre Dame with that veteran QB Sam Hartman, he's really playing well. You've got Texas at number 11. They beat Rice. Really doesn't matter. They've got that huge game with Alabama. If they somehow beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa as 7-point underdogs, they're moving inside the top 4 or 3 after that. You have Utah at number 12, so they beat Florida. I'm really not buying Utah this year. I just don't think they have enough talent overall, but they are a well-respected program. You do have to say that. They've been very solid the past 3 or 4 years. They're at number 12. Oregon at number 13. So I would have Oregon in front of Utah. I just think they have a higher offensive upside, but they're right next to each other. They dropped an 80-burger on Portland State. Yeah, they should be inside of the top 10 for that. You've got LSU down 9 spots to number 14. So this always seems to happen in week one where you get two elite teams. One of them loses. What do you do with the team that lost? LSU gets crushed, although they were in it in the first half, guys. My opinion on LSU, the great thing about it, it's never changed. I always said they kind of had a lucky year last year, kind of backing into winning the SEC West West. That's been the whole thing with people. Everyone's like, oh my God, they won the SEC West and they return everyone. And I was like, yeah, but it was fluky if you actually look at it last year, the way they won it. I don't think LSU was that good. I thought they were going to go 8-4, 9-3, and they're certainly on their way to doing that, but they're still an extremely talented roster. They've got a solid veteran QB, and I have no problem with them being 14. You could maybe say, move them down a little bit more because they got crushed, but that was still a good game going into the second half. At number 15, you have Kansas State. I think Kansas State probably finishes 7-5. I don't think they'll finish ranked. Oregon State, I would have a little bit higher. What a very impressive win they had on the road at San Jose State. The same San Jose State that played well at USC. So I think Oregon State right now trending up. It's just, unfortunately for them, they have some of the worst luck ever. They finally have a really good team, and the entire Pac-12 is stacked. You've got North Carolina at number 17, moving up after the big Week 1 win, the Battle of the Carolinas. I'm still not buying North Carolina. This was just a situation where South Carolina was overhyped. I'm guessing North Carolina probably finishes 8-4. Seems like they only have Drake May and basically nothing else there. You've got Oklahoma at number 18. Yeah, I would have Oklahoma up significantly more than this. This is an elite team. It's an elite roster. You look at their total talent composite. It's top 10 in college football. They've got a veteran, very solid quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who was injured last year. He's back now. People have been overlooking this team. And then people say, oh, it's just Arkansas State. Yeah, but Arkansas State is at least FBS level. To beat an FBS team 73-0, that's super impressive. You get these casual people who are like, oh, it's all the same. No, there's a very distinct difference between FBS and FCS. And Oklahoma winning by that much, their analytics say they're a top 5, top 6 team right now, and it makes complete sense why. You've got Wisconsin at number 19. They beat Buffalo, kind of struggled a little bit, but that's fine. You have Ole Miss moving up 2 spots to number 20. I guess because maybe people are buying the Jackson Dart hype. They dropped a 70 burger on an FCS team. How about Duke University? Duke is a basketball school now. They're at number 21. They win the Monday night college football game against Clemson. Amazing. We'll have to see. Riley Leonard, decent quarterback. Yes, the ACC. It is a conference where you can make some noise. Maybe they win 9 or 10 games. Breakout year possibly for Duke. You've got Colorado also making their debut. We expected that. They're at number 22. They've got a big game with Nebraska. Very winnable game. It's on big noon. And we'll probably get about 500 commercials for that one. You've got Texas A&M at 23. They've got a big road game. The back end of a home and home with Miami. They're sitting 4-point favorites. They beat New Mexico last week. Extremely talented roster. They really need to win this year. We will see. And then Tulane at number 24. See, I probably would have moved Tulane up a few spots. I thought they had a very impressive win against South Alabama, and their quarterback was super efficient. And there is Clemson still appearing inside the top 25, but they are down 16 spots, by far the biggest fallers of the week, and just hanging on. They'll probably drop out even after beating an FCS team this week. And then you can see others receiving votes. Iowa gets thrown out after beating Utah State, but they didn't cover. We'll see if they can beat Iowa State and maybe re-enter the rankings. UCLA getting 55 votes. Not exactly sure why. I thought UCLA was kind of lackluster against Coastal Carolina. Arkansas is there. We'll see. TCU still getting some votes after losing to Colorado. Kentucky, they started really slow against Ball State. They ended up winning. Pittsburgh, we'll see. Pittsburgh faces Cincinnati this week. That'll be a good game. Mississippi State gets a few votes. Miami with a few votes. I wouldn't mind Miami being ranked, but I know people don't like Miami because they always seem to be overrated. NC State gets a few votes. They face Notre Dame at home this week. Auburn gets 3 votes. Troy gets 3 votes. I could see Troy upsetting Kansas State this week. I really could. I actually predicted it in my predictions video. Fresno State getting a few votes, getting a shout out after a nice road win over Purdue. Minnesota, after their come from behind win against Nebraska. I do not like Minnesota this year. I think they lose, probably 5 games. Wyoming, it would have been great to see Wyoming get ranked. Iowa State, Texas State, yes. Can we rank Texas State, please? You've got Texas Tech, even after their loss to Wyoming. Yeah, I might have Texas Tech ranked. I still like them. They've got a huge game versus Oregon. They might start 0-2 this year, though. Louisville gets a vote. Washington State gets a shout-out. Illinois gets a shout out after almost losing to Toledo. And then there's also Houston, UCF. UCF is a good team. They are. And then James Madison as well. So that is the AP Top 25. And then we also do have an update. You can take a look at these metrics right here. This is another just analytical thing. This gives you a good visual of the teams that moved up and moved down analytically. So you can see Alabama. This is not ESPN FPI, by the way. I reviewed the FPI on Sunday because it immediately updates. This is a different rankings, but ESPN FPI and these rankings both have Alabama at number 1 overall. Again, we'll see how they do against Texas, but they are at number 1. Georgia moves down a little bit because it was a slightly underwhelming performance against UT Martin. Not that it matters too much. They're still at number 2. Ohio State kind of in the same boat as Georgia. Slightly underwhelming. The models expected them to win by 30. They won by 20. And also, analytically, they graded very poorly in terms of their offense. Michigan stays at number 4. They slightly moved down in terms of points because a little underwhelming in their game against East Carolina. Not that they care too much. They just want to be healthy leaving that game. But you can see Florida State up 6 spots overall analytically at number 5. Oklahoma up 8 spots for their thrashing win. You can see USC at number 7. Penn State moves up 1. Oregon moves up 4 for beating Portland State. I mean, yeah, this is analytics. It is what it is. Notre Dame stays at number 10. Tennessee's at 11. Texas, see, this is where it kind of gets a little bit tough. Obviously, Texas really doesn't care about beating Rice by 100 points. The context of this game was that it was 100 degrees out. Texas is facing Alabama this week. They just want to get out of there with no injuries, and honestly, nobody with heat stroke, but they did move down 6 spots because the analytical model doesn't take that into account. It doesn't understand context. And then you can see Ole Miss up 5 spots. Ole Miss is above Washington. Come on now. But some of that's based off a roster composition with the talent that Ole Miss has, I guess. But certainly Washington's better than Ole Miss right now. LSU down to number 15. They're down 10 spots. Utah's down 1 spot. A&M is down 1 spot. Clemson down 11 spots. Kansas State moves up 2 spots. Wisconsin down 1. North Carolina's up 2, Oregon State up 2, Auburn up 6 after crushing UMass in that 3:30 game on ESPN. Remember that? Why was UMass playing on ESPN at 3:30? Just a strange, I mean, that just tells you how bad week 1 was. You can see UCF destroyed Kent State. And let me just say, some of the stuff I've been seeing about Kent State, they might actually be the new worst FBS team this year because apparently they returned virtually no one. And when I saw that spread against UCF in week 1, UCF was minus 36.5. And I was like, Kent State's not that bad, but apparently this year they are horrific. So we'll see with them. And then you have Miami. How does Miami move up 10 spots? I mean, they did have a dominant win against Miami of Ohio, 38-3. You've got to respect that, but that's a big jump there. Kentucky still at 26, Mississippi State at 27. Will Rogers, I mean, that dude is going to need Tommy John surgery, the amount of passes how is Will Rogers even going to play in the NFL? He's thrown too many passes. Nobody's going to, that dude, his arm is going to fall off. Arkansas at 28. Duke, there they are. They move up 21 spots at 29. And then Syracuse gets rewarded for destroying Colgate and winning that game like 65-0 against an FCS team. So those are some interesting analytical rankings to look at. But obviously the top story here, you have the Clemson drop and you have Florida State moving up significantly. Guys, that's going to do it for this update video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.